classes. So this tutorial, we're going to be talking about the latissimus dorsi. And throughout this whole series, we've been talking about shoulder stabilization. And one of the problems I hear in a lot of classes, whether it's dance, fitness, yoga, Pilates, is pull your lats down. The lats are very, very important muscles, but they don't stabilize the shoulder girdle. They are really important for gait, and they help stabilize the sacrum with your gluteals. So the lat attaches to the arm bone, and then it goes down towards the sacrum. So if the problem is, like when I do this movement, I am using my lat, but I don't want to shorten it as I walk. And then if I'm pulling down too much and shortening, it can either pull my back into extension, or for some people, depending on where they're pulling, it's going to pull the whole shoulder blade in downward rotation. Now we're going to look at our colleague here, so turn this way. And I'm putting that here for you. And I want you to watch when she pulls down through her lat. So you're going to go here, and I don't know if you can see it through the camera, but it's fired up. And you see how the shoulder blade is adducting into line. So now we're going to look at how the lat looks when you're pulling down too much profile. So face to the side. And here's where the scapula is. And if she's pulling down, again, do you see how it's adducting? And the shoulder blade is going into downward rotation. Now, face forward. So we're going to bring in some of the principles that we've been talking about of getting upward rotation. We've been talking about that wherever the hand is in space, the scapula is moving in the same direction. So you're going to bring your arm up, and you're going to bend your elbow. So she's doing a great job. That shoulder blade has moved forward. If I brought it, well, it's backwards. Let's do the other side so they can see. And face up again, profile. So there's that shoulder blade wrapping around the ribs. And that's what we want to be always working with. And notice when she does that, that drops the shoulder blade. Now, she's going to she's going to bring her elbow forward, and she's going to hold it, and she's going to lightly bring the humeral head back. So what we're trying to do is to get the center of the humerus bone into the socket without pulling down or adducting. And then she's going to feel a little energy of the tip of the shoulder blade moving to the elbow. So it's kind of circular. So even if we brought her arm up and she was to press down like so, that would be part of a lat thing. We want her to keep her shoulder blade a little wider, especially in this part of being front space. When she comes to the back, we're going to first get to see how much we could get that shoulder blade wide, how much she could move her arm back into space without moving the shoulder blade. Then we want her to move her shoulder blade. Then if let's say we're going to show you in down arch your back, and we have to get that primary, and she's lifting up through, and she's still, if I put my hand here, press lightly down, she has to lift up. So let's have you lie prone, head this way. And the other thing we talked about in earlier tutorials is with the shoulder girdle, I want you to visualize the shoulder girdle wide. So we're now going to look how the lats are in prone. I first want you to see that her shoulder blades are in a really nice wide position and her clavicles are wide. And what I want her to try to find is how to bring her arms to her sides, trying to maintain the width of a shoulder girdle. So bring your arms down by your sides. And right now, sometimes what happens, she's even doing it now, she's trying to pull her armpits down. And I want her just to think about her clavicles being wider. And she's going to give me a little spinal extension. There we go. She's going to start lifting her arms up. That begins that lat. You can even feel that. And then she's going to give me more spinal extension. Spinal extension has to be primary. And then she's going to extend more and give me more lift. She can come up higher if she wants, but she's doing primary spinal extension and then lat. Now, I want you to watch what happens. A lot of times, the first movement you see them pulling the armpits down. And then when they come up, she's good. But if I had a guy who was round-shouldered, like this, so pretend you're round-shouldered, and try to come up, they're going to try to come up more through here because they don't know how to articulate through the spine. What I want you to think most importantly is like when the man does the iron cross, that's phenomenal use of the lats, but he has to have primary, his core and his legs. If he doesn't have that, he will not be able to do the iron cross. And so we're going to just do it one more time. So visualize the clavicles wide, visualize the shoulder blades adhered wide on the ribs. First, give me more spinal extension. Let that breastbone slide forward. She's going to lift her arms up. She's going to give me more spinal extension, and she now can pull and really activate those lats down. She's going to give me more left side. There you go. And then let it go. So we're now going to move it and look at this, how the lats are working in chest expansion and thigh stretch. So come up to kneel, stand, and come forward. Great. Now I want, again, I can see a little bit, and if you are a teacher, you just put your hands on their side bodies, and you kind of listen, and I feel some tone coming in, which is more lat, so I feel this coming in. So I want her to visualize that clavicle has little balloons on it, and it's floating. And so what we want her to do is that the arm is moving back, but the shoulder girdle stays wide. So press the arms down, but the armpits stay up. Keep going, there we go. And that's really lovely. That's great. Yes, it's working, but you can see that she kept it at length. Now let's show bad version, and you see how she pulls down, and then that shoulder blade adducts in. If you were doing chest expansion on the reformer, because this has less movement, only when the arms go behind you, so just take your arms off, and let's say you had ropes, as she presses back, yes, as she gets back, she gets it, but she's keeping her clavicles up. Now, let's do bad version, where she pushes, she does downward rotation. You can see it's also beginning to change the spine. Now, we're going to look at thigh stretch. So remember when we did it prone, we had to have primary getting that spinal extension. So all these vertebrae need to slide together, and then she's going to go back into thigh stretch. So she's going to lift up. She's going to feel the vertebrae move in, and they're all moving equally. Good hamstrings. Now, go back, lightly press down. There we go. And then, again, it's primary coming back up and lifting through. And so, again, you're going to coil not your armpits. Visualize your clavicle high and wide on your back. Right in this center line, we want those vertebrae to kiss into the center. And then she's going to press down. And she's going to coil more in an arch and more legs. Get more legs. There you go. And then you're going to arch up, lift up your breastbone, and then there she is. Great. So now we're going to, give more choreography. So lift up your breastbone, and her clavicles are wide. She's first going to start with chest expansion. She's doing a great job because her shoulder girdle is wide. Press back more. Then she's going to coil her spine in, arch it up, lift her breastbone up, and then lean backwards at her hips and knees. And then she's going to coil that spine back in. Her shoulder blades are still wide, and then she releases and comes through. So we're going to look at cat and camel, but I want to also review a really wonderful imagery, because sometimes the shoulder girdle is not in the right place because of the spine. And we're going to go a lot more through the next tutorial about that. But here's her clavicle, and right here is, down here is probably first rib, comes around first rib, and it comes there. So if you look at my collar, that's where your first rib is. So it's like having a necklace. So can she float that up? That's beautiful. Another great cue is visualize that the front of your armpit is coming up. And that also, just doing that movement helps her drop that shoulder blade. And you see she already widened her shoulders. So we want to bring this underlying concept into cat and camel. So come up to kneel, stand. And we want her to visualize her first rib. It's like you're a slinky, and we're just making all the ribs lengthen up. The tip of the shoulder blade is just reaching towards her elbows. And I want her to keep that spatial intent. So she's going to pull her elbows down, but her first rib stays up high. And then I call it motorcycle wrist. Very important concept there. There you go. You're going to roll. She's going to keep the clavicle wide, and then I want her to stay. Move the tip of the shoulder. So right now she pulled down. I want her to move the tip of the shoulder blade towards the tower bar. There you go. And then you're going to roll back up, and you're going to lift back up, and then you're going to bring the whole thing back and bend through. So one of Bonnie Banger-Cohen's, which is a somatic person, has a wonderful image about currenting. And it means that, like, when we want to get the deep muscles of the spine to current in, but the lats need to current long away from the center, okay? So she's going to pull down, motorcycle wrists, so that, there we go. And then as she rolls down, I want her to lengthen the tip of the shoulder blade way. So she is using her lat here, but she needs to learn to lengthen. She's pulling down a lot. There we go, there we go. And then you're going to roll the whole thing back, and you're going to bring the whole thing back up. And then you're going to, there you go, and then bend your elbows. Do it again. We're going to do a little worse bad version. So what happens when they pull down, go ahead, is sometimes when you see the lat round down, it's almost you see they're shortening from the armpit to the hip, and then they can't get into the core as well. The belly kind of bulges. And then she's having to come up a little higher. We want to get our clients to find extension, especially in our culture right now of all this flexion. And then she's going to roll back up. So the whole idea is to start visualizing this length, even though when she pushes through, she's using it. So I want to review what motorcycle wrist is. So the idea is to try to move the arm as one parallel line. And when people flex at the wrist, you see I start already sending my elbow out and I'm getting into internal rotation. So it kind of helps the shoulder mechanics and the body rhythms to try to keep your wrist as neutral as possible so that you're moving more from your lat and your tricep than what you do at the wrist. So let's look at that. Let's do, matter of fact, do bad version. So pull down. So do you see she has to open her elbows out, and then it's also going to change the shoulder blade. And then again, you might say, oh, I should have my shoulders down. So then let's look at, her shoulder blades is at a very good place. Can she move with as parallel arms as she can? And there's the motorcycle wrist, up and over. And you see, it keeps the alignment of the arms better. Roll through. Tip of the shoulder blade moves away from the hip socket. Wonderful. And then keep this. We want this. She is using her lats, but I want her to visualize this line stays long. And she's going to roll up. Go ahead. And visualize you're going to lengthen your armpit away from your hip socket, your first rib away from your hip socket, and lengthen up. So I just want to review. Come to sitting for me, please. Profile. What the importance of the lat is to do, as well as if I'm pulling down too much, you can see that she's starting to hyperextend. And then you think, oh, I better fix it and pull my ribs down. Then you see it creates another problem. My shoulders are forward. Then the other issue for some other people is it pulls and internally rotates there, and they're becoming kyphotic. And then if she, let's say this line was really tight and she lifted her arm up and she tried to go back more, she's going to go arch through there. So it's trying to find and teach your clients the importance of the lat, but also discovering its length through movement can really help the function of the shoulder girdle and the spine. For the next tutorial, we're going to start talking about how to put this all together, and also the support for the spine, which is essential of how it brings the shoulder girdle. So in this tutorial, we're going to put everything together, because in reality, when we move, we just do not move as one muscle group. In our other tutorials, we broke it down, so there are times we need to wake our clients up on certain understanding, and then we want to bring it back to the full coordination. If I don't have my spine, it also affects my shoulder girdle. So if you see, I have upward rotation of my shoulder blade, but if I live with my spine here, it looks like my shoulder is up. And within that's happening with new education. Some of it's still old. I mean, if you look at Jonda was talking about full body movement and coordination of lower cross system, upper cross system. You have Tom Myers with anatomy trains. Before Tom Myers, there was a whole system of slings, and we're going to really talk about the anterior sling and the posterior sling, which is going to really help the coordination of the arm. So we're going to review again. So we're going to have you come up and bring your arm up. And so remember, we're always talking about that if you see her do this movement, she's doing great, is that when she gets that shoulder blade in upward rotation, her shoulder drops. The other thing we talked about, too, is that clavicle, go ahead, is going to float up. There we go. And that also helps. So in the first tutorial, we talked about bone rhythms. Now, we're going to review the anterior serratus. So she's going to lie prone. The foam roll is in the middle of her thigh bone. So remember, the serratus attaches to the medial part of the shoulder blade, and they're like 9 little slices that go and wrap around to 9 ribs. So she's going to do sternum drop, and I want all the ribs, all 9 ribs, to float up, and especially her first rib. Great. And sternum drop, and then you're going to press out. If I put my hands here, she's doing a little bit of that, so make a fist, and drive your forearm down and forward, and there we go, and lift that first rib up. Then in the second tutorial, we talked about triceps. So sternum drop, flat hands now. She's going to give me that serratus connection. And now, without losing that beautiful wrap of her shoulder blade, she's going to lift her elbows up. Lift up your breastbone and lengthen. There we go. And then lower down. Now, just to review, just sternum drop, give me bad version. Now lift your elbows up. And do you see how it goes up into her shoulder? So that coordination of working the serratus with your triceps is very important. We also talked about, too, so she has this great top. Here's the spine of her shoulder blade, and right where this top is starting to end is her lower trapezius. It's like it's skin that's going down her back. It's so light, so that when she lifts up, she gives me serratus, she lifts her elbows up, and this skin lightly goes into her spine, so there she has even better shoulder stability and this wide shoulder girdle, and then come back down. So now let's have you come to sitting, and we're going to show you through therabands how we're going to coordinate through the core. So if you look, and you can see through some of my drawings, the serratus interdigitates with your external obliques, and then it goes down through your internal obliques, and they're calling that the anterior sling. It's a wonderful concept because a lot of times, as a dancer, this was the problem, and they said, knit your ribs together and pull your sternum down. Well, you can see it's changing my shoulder girdle. But if I can think of these lines sliding shorter, that's my corset that brings a three-dimensional stability instead of just a front stability. So we're putting this TheraBand on. Oh, I forgot one thing. Well, let's do this. You're going to put this TheraBand around. And she's going to reach her elbows here. Now, this TheraBand is also representing her throat because a lot of our clients are living with their heads forward. So again, if my head is forward, I could be the smartest girl in the world, or man. But see, when I bring my throat back, it changes my head-tail connection. So I want her to visualize the front of her throat meeting the TheraBand. So this TheraBand is like the road for her shoulder blade. So when she reaches out, the tip of the shoulder blade slides to the elbow, and the elbow slides to the hand and reaches. And then you're going to come back, and then just bring your arm down. We're going to give her a little more sense of wide clavicles because a lot of our clients, when they start to straighten their arms, they let that humeral head go forward, which then is downward rotation. So remember when we started the session, we want that humeral head lightly back, and then the shoulder blade is sliding, and we're just going to give her like a little feeling of it, that bone staying back, and then she's going to straighten her elbows, not from here, but from her tricep, and then bring it back down. Now we're going to give you another visual of that here is your external and internal obliques, okay? We're going to tie her up with a bow. And I'm being very loose with these TheraBands. I'm using them more as proprioception. But if I was her core and I was to slide those, I'm going to call them sashes, shorter, that's her corset. So when she stretches her arm forward, that will keep her spine in the right place. Now, let's have her look at quadruped. So here again, if you can, matter of fact, give me bad version. So just slump. So she looks hyperextended. And, a lot of times the cue was to pull your ribs down. Yes? But if you see her here, her shoulder blades are kind of together. And if I was to touch kind of on the side seams, I don't feel much serratus. And then when I feel, it's kind of like this quality. It's not a big thing. But once you get that shoulder blade sliding around the ribs, and then you put your fingertips lightly to her side ribs, you can feel that tone hug her ribs. Now, you can see she's trying to get a little extension by doing a head flip. But we want to bring her front of her throat up against that. So now she has a great connection. Now, here's the thing, here's the tip of the shoulder blade connecting to the rib, and then I want her to visualize how that diagonal is like a beam or a support for her spine. Her spine is the roof, and the TheraBand represents the beam. So when she lifts her left arm forward, she has to keep those sashes going. And there you go, and go back down. What you see a lot of times is drop out of this, and now lift that arm up. And a lot of times here, her strategy is to pull down on this side, or some of your clients, they pull down in their ribs. Yes. And so what we want to get to is lift your first rib up, is that feeling of this support holding her. And yes, one of the sashes is going to have to work differently when you make it an uneven movement. Reach the one arm forward, not high, there we go. And that's her support. Now, I want to have us look at push through. So we're going to have her straddle the machine. And she's going to go what? Yeah, and you're going to put your hands there. There you go. So right now, she looks a little arched. We're going to bring her throat gently back. And that's, if you look at her ears, kind of that's where her spine ends up in her head. Then I want her to visualize the tip of the shoulder blades. Sometimes you can do it like, that's it. She's going to sit back. She thinks, there you go. Lengthen. There we go. So pull your elbows down. Good. Move your throat and your core back. Your arms are straight, and just push down and forward. Just your arms. So do you see she's starting to try to get the tower bar forward because she's moving her back? You're going to pull down, and you're going to keep your throat there, and you're going to press down. There we go. Now, I want her to move her ribs back for flexion, and she's going to lift all this up. There you go. And then she'll tip her shoulder blade. So this TheraBand represents that upward rotation. She's starting to pull down, and I want her to think that if we could current her spine forward, but she still has this anterior sling, so she's not flopping. She's going to roll back. She's going to keep that tip of the shoulder blade. There we go. Parallel arms, throat back and up. And then I'm going to ask her to just shape her arms there. We want to keep an upward rotation, and the rest of the movement happens at the hip socket. Oh, she's doing it from her back. Oh, she's doing it. There you go. So what happens a lot of times is when people push forward, they do this. And so what I want you to see, my back is wide, I'm lengthening, and I still have my anterior sling. So you're going to keep your shoulder blades wrapping, and you're going to lengthen your ribs up. There we go, there we go. So that she has length and extension. And then she's going to bring the whole thing back and through. Great. Now, I want her to come back to quadruped. So if we go also, let's have you sit up. I lied. Sit facing forward. And reach your arms out wide again. So if we look at the shoulder girdle, it's like a yoke. Do you see? And so that if I think about the hand connecting to the breastbone and the hands connecting to my sacrum, that's also going to bring the anterior sling in really well. And especially when we go into like elephant, downward dog, plank pose, getting that connection can teach you about length and phenomenal support. So come back to all fours. And walk your hands a little forward. There we go. So we're going to have her do sternum drop. She's going to push off and widen, and the tip of the shoulder blade. There we go. So she has a beautiful flexion. We're going to ask her to squat backwards, and I'm going to ask her to give me a better feeling of the crisscross. It's not a down, it's a crisscross. Tuck your toes under. And let's watch what she does when she goes to downward dog. Now, what's neat about this TheraBand, she's doing a great job, is if she lost her shoulder blade, meaning she lets it come in, this would start sliding off. So here, this wrap is getting the feeling of that serratus, and then it's connecting across to there. And then if she pushes, what I want her to connect is I want her to imagine her hands pushes her sacrum up. There we go. Because a lot of times when she's beginning to do it, a lot of people get closer because they hyperextend, and you want to connect your hands to your tailbone and feel it lengthen, but stay supported. So push harder and get, there we go. And so then she has a beautiful line here, and then you see her shoulder blades are wide. Schlump. Do you see what happens? Now push with that. Keep it schlumped and push. And do you see what happens to her back? So that's where this whole coordination can really change your practice. Let's have her come down. I'm going to take off her toys, but she has to still imagine the toys. We'll keep the sash on. Let's have you go from downward dog to plank pose. So here you are, that first rib, go up to downward dog. Keep that wide shoulder blade. And now you're going to move forward to plank pose, and she'll have to walk, lengthen that breastbone, lengthen that breastbone. There you go. She's a little short. Walk your feet back more. Now, I want her to lift all the ribs up, not her head. Go back to downward dog. Stay. Better shoulder blades, wrapping, 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 wrapping. Then, is it a bird, is it a plane? It's a breastbone. Go. Flying forward. Fly, fly. First rib up, first rib up. Beautiful. She needs a little more legs, but that's it. And then go back into child's pose. So there's a whole example of trying to bring everything in to bring a full body action, which is what's so beautiful about Pilates. But there's ways that in the past, the cues really changes the connection. It really ruins the coordination. So if I'm pulling my armpits down, I'm not going to get to that anterior sling line. Come up, and I want you to face your back to the camera. So what I want you to think about in your practice is, here is the shoulder blade. It's an upward rotation. And I'm going to ask you to back off where your arms are until you know your shoulder blades is working with your hand. So that if she's very successful right now about having a wide back. A lot of times what you see, it's great, and then you go to your bad habit. And so I want you to get observing, oh, do I have a wide shoulder blade? Do I have a wide clavicle? As you change your phrasing, eventually, if she keeps that tip of the shoulder blade there, she's going to be able to, she's doing great. Of course, if I go back more, it will close in. But a lot of times, even when you did downward dog, if I'm this way, I stretch my lats in a different way compared to when I have my good shoulder blades. And then it also relates to standing, because if you're constantly shortening your lats and you try to do this, you're going to either hyperextend or your shoulders go up. And so I'm going to just say is there's times what I'm seeing is I want to go to where I have my beautiful wide clavicle and shoulder blade and stop before I do the bad habit. Because once you get the phrasing correct, it's going to change your arm work and it's going to change your core.